Welcome to Shatter.
Help me reach 5,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and leave your thoughts in the comments. She said it like she was commenting on the weather. Cold. Flat. It's not about love, it's routine. We were standing outside Olive Garden after dinner with her coworkers. The parking lot lights reflected off her phone screen as she scrolled through Instagram. I stood there, keys in my hand, my name already fading in her tone. She wasn't cruel, just done pretending. That's worse. Cruelty burns fast. Indifference freezes slow. I didn't argue, didn't ask who he was. I just ran my hand down her back, felt the distance under her skin, and walked away. Inside, she laughed at something her friend said, a nervous laugh, higher than usual. The sound hit harder than any confession could. That was the moment I knew. It wasn't another man that broke us. It was the mirror she'd built around herself. Rachel worked at Tiffany & Company, downtown, styling the kind of people who never looked at price tags. She loved that world. Glass, perfume, quiet power. I used to pick her up after shifts, hands still stained with oil, the smell of the garage clinging to me. She'd wrinkle her nose, smile, and say, "You smell like work." Back then, it sounded like love. Lately, it sounded like a reminder. The guy showed up at one of their trunk shows. Mark Delaney. He owned a chain of luxury car dealerships, the kind of man who wore confidence like a tailored suit. He bought watches, rings, and attention, and Rachel gave him all three. I didn't find out from her. It was Ben, my old friend who did detailing work for Delaney's showrooms, who mentioned it one night over a beer. "You know your wife's been seen around his Tesla, right? Downtown. Twice this week." My fingers froze around the bottle. The sound of the bar faded. Ben didn't mean harm. He just thought I already knew. I drove home in silence. She was sitting on the couch in one of my sweatshirts, scrolling Amazon, a half-empty Starbucks cup on the table. She looked up, smiled faintly, and asked if I could fix the light in the hallway. Routine. That word rang again in my head like a cracked bell. So I fixed the light, ate cold takeout, showered, and lay beside her, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe like nothing was broken. The next morning, she kissed my cheek before work, smelling of perfume I'd never noticed before. Something faint, expensive, wrong. When the door closed, I sat there, staring at my grease-stained hands. The man she wanted was clean, shiny, loud, the kind who never had to prove anything. I didn't yell, didn't beg, didn't confront her. I just decided to change the one thing she was right about. It wasn't about love anymore. It was routine, and I was done with mine. Ben's words stayed with me like grit under the skin. I didn't need to ask if it was true. I'd already seen it in her eyes weeks ago, that restless glow, that quiet distance she tried to hide with politeness. She wasn't cruel enough to leave, but too proud to stay. I started noticing small details. The way her phone tilted slightly when she texted, screen turned just out of sight. The way she laughed softer now, like she was saving her real smile for someone else. The faint trace of cologne that wasn't mine when she came home late, saying she stayed after work to help a client. One night, I watched her get ready for a company dinner. She wore a silk blouse I'd never seen before, pale silver that caught the light when she moved. She asked if I could press it, said the steamer wasn't working. I did it without a word, watching the steam roll over fabric that didn't belong to our life. When she left, the house went silent, like even the walls knew better than to expect her laughter anymore. At the garage, work felt different too. I used to fix engines and think about her, what we'd do for dinner, which movie to watch. Now, every sound, every bolt, every spark under the hood felt like noise covering up a truth I wasn't ready to face. I stayed late that night, long after the last customer picked up his car. The smell of oil and steel grounded me in a way her perfume never could. Around midnight, I checked her location once, out of habit. It showed she was at the downtown Hyatt, the one near Tiffany & Company. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the call button, then turned the phone face down. There's a kind of silence that isn't weakness, it's calculation. That was the night I stopped reacting and started thinking. In the following days, I watched her drift further. She'd bring home small Tiffany bags, say they were returns, but I knew better. The names on the receipts weren't hers. Neither were the smiles she practiced in the mirror. I didn't confront her. I collected proof quietly, bank statements, dates, places, not to use against her, but to see the full picture. to remind myself this wasn't an accident. It was a pattern. Every morning, I drove to work in my Ford F-150, the same truck I'd had since before we met. But that week, even the drive felt different, cleaner somehow, like the road was waiting for me to become someone else. By Friday, I'd made my decision. Not to expose her, not to leave a note. I'd just stop showing up where I wasn't respected. Proof doesn't always come in pictures. Sometimes it's in the pauses between messages, in the way a phone vibrates and she doesn't look up. I started noticing everything. The small inconsistencies, the rushed goodbyes, the quiet guilt that always came too late. One evening, she left her MacBook open on the kitchen counter. It wasn't curiosity that made me look. It was survival. I saw the emails first, short, coded, efficient. Same place. Tomorrow night? Bring that smile. Then a photo. Her reflection in the window of a black Tesla. His hand on her shoulder. I closed the laptop gently, like it was something fragile I didn't want to break. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of the betrayal, but because of the calm that came after. It was like something inside me had stopped fighting. I realized that silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. She wanted to feel seen. I'd let her see what life looks like when I stop holding it together for her. The next morning, she acted normal. Made coffee, scrolled her phone, talked about a client who wanted a new watch from Tiffany & Company. I nodded, pretending to listen. But in my head, plans were already forming. At the garage, I started closing tabs of my old life. Sold a few things I didn't need. Looked into expansion loans I'd once thought were out of reach. Tesla had been rolling out new contracts for certified repair partnerships. I'd ignored the emails before, now I opened them. I started calling suppliers, meeting reps, asking questions. Quietly, deliberately. At home, Rachel grew distant in a different way. Almost nervous now. She felt the shift, but couldn't read it. I wasn't angry anymore, and that scared her. Anger she could handle. Distance was unfamiliar. She tried to start small talk over dinner, complimented my shirt, said I looked different lately. I just smiled. Routine. That week, I cleaned the garage myself for the first time in months. Scrubbed the floor until the oil stains faded. Threw away old parts, broken tools, things that didn't belong anymore. Each piece that hit the trash felt like a memory I didn't need to carry. When I finished, I sat on the hood of a car, watching the lights dim across the lot. The night was quiet, calm, almost respectful. Somewhere downtown, she was probably drinking wine, laughing at something he said. But for the first time in months, I didn't picture it. I just pictured my future without her reflection in it. And for the first time, it looked clean. Disappearing isn't always about leaving. Sometimes it's about becoming invisible right where you stand. I didn't pack a bag or slam a door. I just stopped reacting, stopped explaining, stopped being available on demand. Rachel didn't notice at first. Most people don't notice the silence until it's too late. I started leaving early in the mornings, before she woke up. The garage became my refuge again, but not the old version. I was already building something new, quietly, methodically. Meetings with potential investors, calls with Tesla reps, paperwork that required patience instead of emotion. Each step was a small rebellion against the version of me she thought would always stay in place. At home, I disconnected. My phone stayed face down. I no longer asked about her schedule or who she was meeting after work. I just listened to the sound of her voice explaining things that didn't matter anymore. Her words bounced off walls that no longer kept me. By the end of the week, I'd transferred ownership of the old garage to a younger mechanic who reminded me of myself 10 years ago. Hungry, grateful, unaware of how easily love can dull your edge. I handed him the keys, wished him luck, and walked away. My hands were clean for the first time in years. That night, I drove out of town. The road stretched ahead, quiet and endless. I pulled over at a small diner off the highway, ordered coffee, and watched my reflection in the window. I looked lighter. Not happier, just uncluttered. There's a difference. Back home, Rachel called twice. Then once more. I didn't answer. Her texts came next, short at first, then longer, the tone shifting from casual to worried. She asked if everything was okay, if I was coming home, if we could talk. I left them unread. I wasn't punishing her. I was protecting the silence I'd earned. 2 days later, she showed up at the garage, only to find it empty. She called again, her voice tight, almost shaking. She didn't understand that I hadn't vanished. I just stepped out of the routine she built around me. That night, I checked into a quiet Airbnb on the edge of town. No noise, no reminders, just space. I sat by the window, watching the sunset bleed across the sky, holding a Starbucks cup gone cold. She thought she'd replaced me with someone brighter, louder, more exciting. But excitement fades. Silence doesn't. And for the first time, she was the one trying to find me. I didn't chase, but I didn't hide either. I just let time do what anger never could, make her irrelevant. The world kept turning, but hers started to wobble. She'd built her life on reflections, mirrors, compliments, attention. And now every mirror looked back empty. While she was calling, I was signing contracts. Tesla approved my application faster than I expected. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was timing. Maybe it was the kind of focus that only comes after betrayal. I rented a small industrial space near the interstate, clean floors, white walls, nothing like the old garage. I hired 2 techs from my past crew and a young manager who handled the digital side, scheduling, online bookings, branding. The business had a new name. Simple, sharp, detached. Word spread fast. I posted nothing personal, just work updates, before and after shots, new installs, satisfied clients. Within weeks, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. People like efficiency, and I had learned it from the best teacher, disappointment. One night, as I was locking up, Ben stopped by. He'd heard Delaney's name again. Apparently, the guy's luxury empire wasn't as polished as it looked. Tax issues, fake imports, a pending investigation. Ben smirked when he told me. Said, "Guess money doesn't buy silence forever." I just nodded. I didn't care about Delaney anymore. I only cared that the world was quietly correcting itself. A week later, Rachel showed up at my new shop. She wore a designer coat, expensive but wrinkled, like it had been grabbed in a rush. Her hair was different, shorter, colder. She looked around, surprised. Said it smelled clean. Not oil, not smoke, just success. I thanked her, like she was a stranger commenting on the weather. She tried to ask questions, circling around the topic she couldn't say out loud. I gave her nothing. No explanation, no story, just facts. The garage was gone. The new business was doing well. Everything else, none of her concern. She left that day slower than she arrived, like the air around her had changed temperature. Later that night, I saw her post on Instagram. A quote about starting over. No photos of him. No jewelry. Just white space and words. That's how I knew her world was cracking. People think revenge is loud. It's not. It's quiet, methodical, surgical. It's building something better while they're still trying to understand what went wrong. By the time she realized what I'd become, I was already too far ahead to look back. News travels fast in small cities, especially when power starts to shift. By the end of the month, everyone in town had heard something about Delaney. The man who once strutted through Tiffany and Company. Like a king was now fighting to keep his empire from burning down. Some said the IRS was on him. Others whispered about partners pulling out, investors walking away. Whatever it was, it spread like gasoline on a dry field. I didn't have to move a finger. I just watched the headlines like background noise while tightening bolts and checking invoices. My new shop was busier than ever. Customers came in talking about Delaney's troubles like it was a soap opera. I kept my head down, pretending I didn't care. But deep down, I knew. Karma doesn't rush, it schedules appointments. Rachel must have felt it too. Her messages shifted tone. Less confident now, more hesitant. She said she wanted to catch up, to understand where we stand. I didn't reply. Instead, I posted a picture of the shop's new sign. Clean metal letters, no sentimentality. The caption read, "Rebuilt. From the ground up." The comments poured in, old friends, former clients, even some of her co-workers from Tiffany's, all congratulating me. That's when I realized something. She wasn't losing me to another woman. She was losing me to silence, success, and the version of myself that didn't need her approval anymore. A few days later, I ran into her accidentally. Or maybe it wasn't an accident. She was at Target, standing in line with a basket of groceries, staring at her phone. She didn't notice me at first. When she finally looked up, her face changed. Not shock, something quieter. Recognition of distance that couldn't be crossed anymore. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Said I looked good. Asked if I was happy. I told her I was busy. That word hit harder than any insult could. She nodded, her voice catching when she said, "You've changed." I didn't correct her. She was right. But it wasn't change, it was calibration. When I walked out of that store, I didn't feel triumph. Just clarity. Everything that once felt personal now felt like data. Actions, choices, consequences. That night, I sat in the truck with a Starbucks cup cooling in the holder, watching the lights fade over the city. The same city where I used to feel small. Now it felt like mine. When silence becomes habit, it changes the shape of your world. I stopped waiting for her messages, stopped checking if she viewed my stories. Every piece of attention I used to give her, I redirected into the new rhythm of my life. Work, gym, quiet dinners alone. Nothing dramatic, just consistent movement. Tesla sent more contracts, bigger ones this time. My name was starting to carry weight in circles that used to ignore me. I hired 2 more employees, replaced my old phone, bought better equipment. Every upgrade felt like a small revenge against who I used to be. The man who begged for attention instead of building his own worth. Rachel, though, was unraveling. I didn't see it directly, but people talk. Ben told me she quit Tiffany & Company. Said she'd been missing shifts, showing up late, distracted. I could picture it easily. Her smile cracking in front of customers, her voice losing its charm. The world she built out of shine was dimming fast. A few weeks later, she texted again. Longer this time. Said she wanted to meet. Not to talk about the past, she wrote. Just to see you. I stared at the message for a while, then set my phone down. I didn't block her. I just didn't answer. Sometimes indifference is the only real language left. At night, I drive out of town after closing the shop. The same roads we used to take on weekends. I'd park at the overlook near the water, sit on the hood of the car, and watch the city glow from a distance. I used to imagine her sitting next to me. Now, I just enjoyed the empty space where her voice used to fill the air. One evening, I stopped at a diner I hadn't been to in years. The waitress recognized me, said I looked different. Cleaner, calmer. I told her business was good. She smiled and said, "You seem like a man who figured it out." Maybe I had. Maybe losing everything you thought mattered is how you finally learn what actually does. That night, I scrolled through my phone before bed. Her name still sat in my messages, unread. For the first time, I didn't feel anything. No anger. No nostalgia. Just distance. Solid, necessary distance. She used to reach for me out of habit. Now she was reaching for something that no longer existed. And that, I realized, was the purest kind of peace. It was late afternoon when she finally showed up at my shop. I saw her reflection in the glass before I saw her face. She looked smaller somehow, stripped of the confidence she used to wear like perfume. Her makeup was lighter, her posture unsure. I could tell she rehearsed this moment 100 times and still wasn't ready for how quiet it would be. I was finishing up paperwork when she stepped inside. The smell of new paint and machine oil filled the air. She looked around, trying to find something familiar in a space that no longer belonged to her world. She said it looked different. I told her it was supposed to. She took a slow breath, glanced at my desk, the coffee from Starbucks half finished, the polished tools laid out in a clean row, the small photo of the shop team smiling after our first big contract. She tried to say something about how proud she was of me, how she always knew I'd make it. I didn't interrupt, didn't look up. Her words rolled off me like rain on glass. Then she asked the question that hung between us since the night. She said it was all routine. She wanted to know when I'd stopped loving her. I told her the truth, that love doesn't die. It just outgrows the place it used to live. She stood there, quiet. The same woman who once chased admiration now stood in front of someone she couldn't read anymore. She said I seemed colder. I told her maybe I'd just stopped burning. She tried to reach out, not physically, but through memories. She brought up old stories, small moments she thought would pull me back. The first time she visited the garage, the night we ate burgers in the truck, the morning I fixed her necklace before she went to work. Every memory she touched turned fragile in her hands, like glass that couldn't hold weight anymore. I didn't hate her. I didn't forgive her either. I'd simply moved past the part where either mattered. She looked at me like she wanted to cry but didn't have the right anymore. When she finally walked out, she turned once more at the door, searching for a reaction. I gave her nothing. The silence followed her outside, the kind that fills every empty space after the truth finally lands. After that day, I didn't see her for weeks. The silence between us became permanent, Not heavy or painful, just absolute. But sometimes the past doesn't stay buried. It drifts back in through other people's words. Ben stopped by one evening, dropped off some parts, and mentioned he'd seen her at a coffee shop near downtown. Said she looked lost, like someone trying to remember how to start over. I just nodded, pretending not to care. But later that night, I caught myself staring out the window longer than usual. I wasn't waiting for her, not really. I was just observing the quiet she'd left behind. It was strange how peace could feel both freeing and unfamiliar. I'd built a new life. Contracts, employees, a future that didn't depend on anyone else. And yet, there was still a ghost of what used to be. Not love, not regret, just residue. Then one morning, I saw her name again, not in my phone but online. A local business article talking about Tiffany and Company restructuring, laying off staff, closing a few stores. Her name was in the comments. Someone said she'd been let go months ago. No one knew what she was doing now. The world that once validated her had moved on without applause. Later that week, I saw her by accident. At a red light. She was crossing the street, holding a small grocery bag from Target, wearing a plain coat instead of her usual designer layers. She looked up for a second, caught my eyes through the windshield, and froze. The light turned green. I drove on. No anger, no smile, just forward motion. That night, I sat in the shop after everyone left. The hum of the machines was the only sound. I thought about the man I used to be, the one who tried to fix everything, even what wasn't his to fix. Now I understood something simple but sharp. Sometimes you rebuild not to prove a point, but to stop bleeding. She used to tell me I didn't understand her world. Maybe she was right. Maybe I just outgrew the need to. The next morning, I got an early call from Tesla, another expansion offer. I looked around the office, sunlight hitting the metal walls, and realized I'd already stepped into a new version of myself. Somewhere out there, she was still reaching for what she'd lost. But what she didn't know was that it had never been her to begin with. It was the part of me that finally learned to walk away. She came back one last time. I wasn't expecting it. It was early evening, the shop half empty, music low, the smell of metal and polish still hanging in the air. I was finishing paperwork when I saw her shadow through the glass door. For a second, it felt like the past had returned to test if I'd really moved on. But when she walked in, I knew it wasn't the same woman. Her confidence was gone. What stood in front of me was someone stripped down to truth. She said she didn't come to apologize. She said she just needed to understand how I did it, how I walked away without breaking. I didn't look up at first, just kept writing, calm, steady. Then I told her the truth, that breaking wasn't the end, it was the reset. That I didn't disappear, I just stopped showing up where I wasn't respected. She stared at me like the words hit something deep. Said she thought what we had was love, but maybe it was just her trying not to feel invisible. I didn't argue. There's no point in dissecting what's already over. She asked if I ever thought about what could have been. I told her I used to, every night, until I realized the version of her I loved never really existed. She was just a reflection of who I wanted her to be. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The sound of the ticking clock filled the space between us. Finally, she reached out, her fingers brushing the edge of my desk. But I didn't move. That tiny distance between her hand and mine felt like a lifetime. She whispered that she missed the man who used to fix everything. I said he doesn't work here anymore. When she left, she didn't cry, didn't look back, just walked out quietly, like someone accepting the ending she'd been avoiding. I watched her fade into the parking lot lights, small against the world she once tried to conquer. I sat there for a while, staring at the reflection of the shop windows, the keys to the car glinting beside a half-empty Starbucks cup. Then I smiled, slow and certain. She was right that night outside Olive Garden. It was routine. But the difference was, I'd updated mine. And as the door closed behind her, I realized something simple, almost peaceful. Sometimes walking away isn't the end of love. It's just the beginning of self-respect. What would you have done in my place? If the story hit you, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. It only gets stronger from here.